let's go and do test our scenarios. The first scenario that we are going to test is adding an authorization object into a derived role manually. So let's go to the derived role 1. Click on the change icon. Go to authorization tab. Click on change authorization data because we want to add an object into the role manually. Click on the insert manually button. So click on that and let's enter an object called s_GUI. Now this is only for testing purpose, so we can enter you can enter whatever you want. So let's enter s_GUI and click on continue. So you see the object has been entered into the role manually now. Let's go and maintain the authorizations for it and not generate. So what we have done here is we have entered an object into the role manually. So this object was not inherited from the parent role. So we modified the derived role. Now the purpose of this testing is to verify whether this change remains in the role or not, in the derived role. So let's go back and check if it has affected the other derived role because they are referenced from the same parent role. So it's not there in this role, in the second derived role. Now let's go back to the parent role and see if the object is there in this role. It's not. Now imagine, let's say we generate this role. Now you see there is a new icon here, the generate derived role icon. This would not be there in a normal single role. You will have this one icon only if this role happens to be a parent role of some other role. So in our case, this z-test parent role is a parent role, a referenced role for z:test_derived_role1 role. So it's not there. We generated this parent role. Let's see what happens if this has affected the child role. It has not. The object is still there. So if you make a change to a parent role and generate only the parent role, for example, if I only generate this, it does not affect the child changes that you have made to the child role. But what if I generate the child role, generate the derived role from the parent role, within the parent role? So let's click on this, generate derived roles, and see what happens in the child. So you can use this option to adjust and generate the profiles of all roles derived from this role. So you're generating the profile of the derived roles from the parent role here. So now let's go back and check what happens to the change that we have made directly in the child role. So enter the child role name of the derived role 1 role, click on authorization data tab, change, and you see that object is gone. So when you generate a child role from within the parent role, whatever changes you have made directly to the child role, the derived role, they are overwritten by what is contained in the parent role. So technically, even though you can make a change directly to the child role, derived role, you cannot, because when you generate the derived role from the parent, the changes that you have made are overwritten. So you cannot make a change directly to a child role. So we tested In this scenario, we tested by inserting an man object into the child role manually. The next test that we'll do is by changing a field value in a child role and go through the same tests again and see if these values get affected when you generate the child role from the parent role. So one thing is clear now, two things are clear now so far. One is that you cannot add a transaction code into the child role. Second, even though you can add or you can modify a child role and make changes to the child role directly, those changes will not remain if you derive the profiles of the derived roles from the parent role by clicking on that generate derived roles icon. So let us go and test changing the field values.